My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today I'm going to be reviewing and analyzing the novel In Cold Blood, written by Truman Capote. So, this novel is very surprising. It was written after a true murder case that happened in Holcomb, Kansas. And this book really kind of gives us an account of what happened in that whole situation, how the murders occurred, and why they occurred. So, before I go into the summary and explanation of this novel, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or leave a comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So, the book begins with the introduction of this family by the name of the Clutter Family. So the Clutters are a very interesting family. They're well known throughout their community, throughout the Holcomb community. Everybody knows them as good Christians, good people who are well known throughout everything, basically. For example, the daughter Nancy Clutter is an honor student. She's doing all these types of activities in her school. She's helping out of her people. And she's just a model individual. Everybody wants to follow her. Everybody wants to be like her. She's dating this guy by the name of Bobby Rupp, and they have a romantic relationship going on, and even that is something to for other people to simulate or to try to get something exactly like that. So the entire family is just this picturesque family that everybody likes and adore. Um, and in the novel, you look at this family like this is a perfect family. This is a family that nothing bad would ever happen to them. The father, Mr. Clutter, he's not the richest man in the county, but he's well off. His wife, he has a loving wife, um, and his son Canyon. Canyon is just a normal son. He's not be successful in any way. He's not being extremely successful, but at the same time, he's not problematic. He's not giving his father or his family problems. So overall, the entire this entire family is this picturesque family that everybody wants to be like. So what's interesting with this book is after we're introduced to the main characters, we're introduced to this family. Um, what Truman Capote does is he tells you that these people are going to die. So after you're introduced to these people and how awesome they are and how beneficial they are to their community, Truman Capote just tells you this is their last day alive. They're going to die, and there's nothing that can be done to change it. This is already set in stone, and it's just it can't be changed, which is really heartbreaking because you're reading the novel. You're like, all right, these are great people. I'm supporting them. I'm rooting for them, and then the author just tells you they're going to die. So it's really interesting. After we're introduced to the Clutter family, we're introduced to two individuals by the name of Dick and Perry. And Dick and Perry, from the get go, Truman Capote tells us that they're going to be the killers of the Clutter family. There's no beating around the bush here. It's just plain to see that the novel sets you up. They show you the sheep and they show you the wolf. And Dick and Perry are going to be the wolves in this particular piece. And Dick and Perry, they're both former inmates. They're out on parole, and they're planning their next score. And Dick, while he was in prison, he meets this guy by the name of Floyd Wells, and Floyd Wells tells him about Mr. Clutter, which he used to work for. Floyd Wells believes that Mr. Clutter has some sort of safe with a lot of money in it, and in prison he was telling Dick about this. And Dick, after he hears this, he says he's going to rob them and kill them. And the other thing that's really interesting is that Dick Floyd tells Dick about Mr. Clutter's daughter Nancy, which Dick, in his mind, he plans to abuse her. He plans to rape her. So the novel continues, and Dick and Perry they plan this big score of theirs that they're going to rob the Clutters, get all the money, Dick is going to rape Nancy, and then they're going to go to Mexico after they're done committing the crime. So they go to the Clutter family, and during this one night, um, they can't find a safe. There's no safe. When they get to Mr. Clutter says he's a man that does business all on paper. So he's a person that writes checks. He's a person that does business with paper, not with cash. So there's no safe in the house. Dick and Perry, they tie everybody up. They look for the safe, but there's no safe. Dick, he goes and tries to rape Nancy, but Perry stops him because Perry doesn't. He hates that. He hates a man who can't control his sexual urges. So Perry stops that, and Dick is not particularly happy about it because, according to him in the novel, one of the biggest reasons why he wanted to rob the Clutters, it's because he really wanted to rape Nancy, and he has a fetish with children, and that's why he wanted to do this big score, which is it's really horrible because it shows you how multi-layered these criminals are, and that they want to commit a crime within a crime. And Dick, he always has this like ulterior motives with the things he wants to do. So Dick and Perry, they can't find a safe, and Perry won't let Dick do what he wants to do, and so they don't know what to do because what they came to do to the Clutters, they basically can't do it. So they're talking to Mr. Clutter, and Perry, in this like fit of passion, and this fit of excitement, anger. It's you can't really pinpoint it because the way he kills Mr. Clutter, there's a quote in the book where he says the room just went blue, and something like the gun just went off, and it's really it shows you that he just goes into this state, and Perry kills Mr. Clutter, and these villains, these criminals, they go out throughout the house, they kill Canyon, they kill Mrs. Clutter, and they kill Nancy. So the parents are dead, the children are dead, but these are not the only children that Mr. and Mrs. Clutter had. The other children that they have that weren't in the house, they didn't die, of course. But everybody that was in the house that night, except for their dog, which was a coward, um, because as soon as he saw Perry and Dick, he kind of ran away, his tail between his legs, and the dog kind of ran away. And the whole family's killed. And Perry and Dick, they get into their car, and they drive away. The next morning, the murder of these individuals, of these family members, they're discovered, and Holcomb, Kansas, is in utter shock because they don't know who did it. Dick and Perry are complete strangers. They didn't live in this place. They didn't live in this community, and they know nobody in this community. So the community kind of goes into this state of shock, into this state of who did it, into this state of maybe the murderer is among us. So everybody starts locking their doors. Everybody leaves their lights on at night. Everybody has their guns out, and they're trying to protect themselves because they really don't know who committed these murders. And Dick and Perry, they're long gone. And what's really sad about it is the only thing that they found in the house was $40 to $50. That's how much they got from killing 10 people, from killing these four people. They got $40 to $50. There's even this one scene where Perry goes on his knees to get the silver dollar that Nancy had in a purse. So for $40 to $50, um, they killed this family. So like $10 per person if they only got $40. So it's very sad. And keep in mind that this novel was written because of a real event that happened in Holcomb, Kansas. So Dick and Perry, they set out. They're trying to leave the state of Kansas because, according to the original plan, as soon as they're done committing this big score, they're gonna go to Mexico and live out the rest of their days. But the problem is they didn't really get that much money from the Clutter family, so they have to go from store to store, and committing different types of schemes and crimes, passing false checks, and things like that to get by, to eat, and to live off of that. Dick is very charming. He's very persuasive. He can make people believe in what he says. And it's just he has that kind of swagger to just make people believe him. That's why he has the ability to kind of pass on bad checks, and to make other people do what he wants. Perry follows along, and they actually make it to Mexico. They commit a lot of crimes, and they get to Mexico, and there's nothing that the law can do to get them. The only thing left at the crime scene was boot prints. They stole a portable radio and a binoculars, and after that, that was it. There's nothing linking them to the crime. They took the shells after they fired their gun. They took the shells, and there was nothing linking them to the crime. So after this happened, there's this investigator by the name of Alden Dewey. He's assigned to figure out who committed the murder, to bring this individual to justice. And Dewey doesn't really know what to do because, again, Dick and Perry were not from the Holcomb community. They were complete strangers. They kill, they commit the crime, they're gone, they're out of the state. So there's no way of linking them to the crime because they had no vendetta, they had no issue with the Clutter family. So Dewey just finds a hard job, and people are pointing fingers here and there, but they don't know who did this murder, except for the reader, of course. So the novel goes on, and what happens is Floydwell, he's still in prison. Dick's friend, he's still in prison, and he hears over the radio that Dick actually did it. This was um, Floyd Wells told Dick in kind of a joke kind of a thing. It wasn't really He wasn't really saying, "Here's this rich family, go kill them and take their money." It was something he was just telling them in fun, in joking, right? But Floyd Wells hears this in the radio that you know the Clutters are dead, and Floyd says it has to be Dick. Dick did this. So he comes clean, and now the investigators, they have a lead. Floyd Wells, he does get a money for this when he gets out of prison, so he benefits from telling um, the investigators, the prison people, that Dick is the one who did this. So that happens, and Dewey kind of has a lead, and he starts to investigate. Eventually, what happens is Dick and Perry, they come back into the United States. They were in Mexico, but they come back into the United States, and they're still committing crimes. And what's interesting is um, the time comes where Dewey gets close to them, and they arrest Dick and Perry with the idea that um, they know it's kind of them who did it, but they don't have concrete evidence to prove it. So they bring them in charges of parole, because Perry was never supposed to step foot in Kansas, but he did. That was something from his past crimes. So he does step in Kansas. He gets into the state of Kansas, and that was illegal. He violated his parole. So while they're questioning Dick and Perry, they're questioning them alone. They bring up the idea of the Clutter murders, and they confess, and it becomes this huge case, and it becomes something huge. This becomes a story that's all over the newspapers. It becomes a story that everybody's looking into. So this goes to trial. Now, if we're talking in terms of legal procedures, this book, the investigators in this book, they do not know the law at all, because everything that they do to obtain evidence for this case is illegal. They don't get warrants. They just go into um, different places. They go to houses, and where the gun that was used, they just go there. So the gun that was used in the murder was at Dick's family house. It was at his dad's house. So the investigators just go to the house, they grab the gun, and they take it for evidence. You can't do that. You need a warrant. You need papers to actually do that. And there's so many things that can make this criminal investigation just illegal, and this criminal prosecution very illegal, because they have the trial in Holcomb, which is extremely bad because everybody in Holcomb hates Dick and Perry. So when you choose your the people, the jurors, to be um, on the panel, they already hate these two characters. And to add more to how horrible this is, the judge kind of sort of knew Mr. Clutter, which is extremely bad because in the court of law, the people who are judging the criminals cannot in any way know the victims. That can lead to those who are judging the criminals being biased. So, in terms of a court of law, there's so many points and so many places in the novel where the criminal hearing or the court case of Dick and Perry could be considered a mistrial because there's so many illegal things done to get them to go to prison. But eventually they do go to prison. They get the death penalty. And while Dick and Perry are in prison, they try to appeal, but the state, they just wanted to put this matter at rest. They wanted to kill the people who killed the Clutters, and Dick and Perry, they try to fight it. They try to find different reasons or different ways to get out of prison. At first, the first place they were holding them, they tried to escape from that. That didn't work. And then Perry tried to starve himself to somehow get out, but that didn't work. And then Dick, he tries to appeal. He tries to appeal and says he had a mistrial. There's a number of things that happened that really made his case not in his favor, and he says that he was misrepresented. So eventually, what happens is Dick and Perry, they're hanged, and that's the end of their story. They were sentenced to death row. They're hanged, and that's the end of their story. And kind of life moves on within the novel. The people that were left behind after this case, after this whole incident happened, they just move on with their lives, which is very interesting because it shows you that even the most horrific events, even the most horrific circumstances, life just keeps going forward. Life just keeps moving. Yes, the murders were gruesome, and yes, these were very important people of the community that died. But after their deaths and after their stuff were auctioned off, and after their property was auctioned off, life moved on, which is very, very interesting. So that's the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. It's a very interesting book in my point of view because it shows you why some criminals commit murders. Dick and Perry, they committed this murder not because they had some sort of hatred for the Clutters. They didn't even know the Clutters. The only reason why they killed the Clutters were for money, and for Dick to rape Nancy, which is it's just horrific and really sad. And the other thing that's really horrible about the characters Dick and Perry is just that they only thought about themselves. They only thought about their well-being, and yes, that has a lot to do with the way their parents raised them. They did not have amazing childhoods, and there are parts of the novel where this doctor says that there's room here for Dick and Perry to be classified as people with mental disabilities because they had accidents, and they're not functioning socially as they should. So there's places in the novel where that indicates that Perry and Dick might have some mental issues, but that's never really addressed. This the way that this novel carries it out. It's you did the crime, you paid the crime, And Dick and Perry did pay the ultimate price. They're killed. They're hanged, and that's the end of the novel. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like again, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.